If it wasn't for you guys, we never go to life success, and I never get to the point where I'm comfortable to talk about what was going on in my house. So, you guys were grassroots for us, and
Absolutely.
and it was such a freeing feeling for me to be able to talk about it.
Well, Joe and I met in 1981. We dated for 6 years. Never really talked about his dad too much. And he would talk lovingly about his mother, but didn't want to go down that road to have a discussion at all about his father. Just that he was a New York City police guy and he was a bully, and that was it. And it wasn't until we went to this seminar in 1995 that he understood that he had buried a lot of those feelings and emotions.
You walk in and all of a sudden they separate you. Allie and I were separated, and they put us in groups. It was uncomfortable for me at first because I was surrounded by strangers. I had just been named manager of the New York Yankees, so I knew I was, sort of visible to people. But after a day or so, you sort of dug in. And the speaker, and I cannot tell you exactly what he said, but all of a sudden I stood up and I was crying in front of all these strangers because he struck a nerve that was, it hit home for me. And when I say it hit home, there were things like low self-esteem, nervousness. I didn't want to go to school because I just was either nervous about it or not confident about it. And I thought I was born that way. And I was sort of ashamed. At that point, felt that I don't have to keep this hidden anymore.
And I remember going home the second night, and Joe picked up the phone and called his sister, and I heard him say, "Did Dad hit Mom?"
So my sisters were always there trying to protect me, and in doing so, there'd be a lot of whispering going on. And I knew my dad, if he didn't like what my mom put on the table for lunch, he would throw it against the wall. I knew that part. So my sisters, when they were whispering, I thought I did something wrong. That's the way it struck me.
What was my first time discovering what had really gone on in his home? And that his sister was crying on the other end. And now I had known them for over 10 years, 12 years. No one ever spoke about it.
And it was tough for them too, because they didn't want to talk about it. They sort of stuck it away in a safe somewhere. And once they started talking about it and started sharing, there was stuff I never knew about. My mom had lost a baby between me and my brother Frank. My dad told my mom that he didn't, no more children. So when he found out that she was pregnant with me, he threw her down a flight of stairs. I never shared any of this stuff with my friends. I mean, when I came home from school, if my dad's car was in front of the house, I'd go to a friend's house until he went to work. It would have been different if I just had somebody I felt I could talk to or could talk about it with.
And when Joe and I started our conversation about what we wanted to do, and he mentioned domestic violence, I was like, wow, this is such an opportunity, if he has the courage to tell his story publicly, to talk about his perspective from a child's standpoint.
I went into a classroom in a middle school, and I explained to the kids, I said, we'll talk baseball in a minute, because I figured, I'm still the Yankee manager. I'm current, so to speak. And I was, talking about my dad and how he abused my mom. And I looked up, and probably half of them were going like this. And at that point in time, I realized that we had struck a nerve here, and that we were really on the right track to do something for these kids.
For every woman that goes into a shelter, there's 2 or 3 children that are going with her. And witnessing how it affected Joe and his family firsthand, it just gave me hope and motivation, really, that we have to do something about this.
I mean, we see domestic violence and child abuse all the time. And I get the feeling sometimes people just don't want to discuss that or confront that. But it's one of the really scars on the human life.
It's hard to face what some of these children are going through. It's hard. It's really hard. And I believe, and so does Bob, and our family believes, our entire family, that the best way to reach people is through education.
First of all, if you want to do something about domestic violence, you've got to do it through education. I mean, if you're going to end the cycle, or at least make a contribution toward that goal, people need to understand why they have feelings, especially the kids.
I've always thought the fact that Joe and Allie named the program Safe at Home, it's perfect for a baseball player. But if you think about what that means, and to think that so many of these children don't feel safe at home. I mean, Joe's story, it's incredible that someone that grew up with the violence in their home was able to turn that around and help so many different children.
And it's a matter of making them comfortable enough where they, it starts coming out. It starts coming out. And then once they start talking about it, they realize 2 things. They're not alone, and it's not their fault. Because those are the 2 things that were certainly, inside me for the longest time.